like what will research look like for depersonalization? We both agree that we do need research, but what is that going to look like? Because this experience is so subjective. Like how can anyone like what do we do to objectively study and understand it? I'm not even sure. Like maybe this even applies to other mental disorders like depression or anxiety, but it's fairly common that uh, uh, illnesses like depression and anxiety exist, that even the researchers who are studying it kind of would have experienced depression or anxiety, so they have some sort of understanding about it. But it almost seems like most people who are studying depersonalization in a clinical setting, and who have not experienced depersonalization, I'm trying to understand how can research be done when this experience is like very, very subjective.
Yeah, so I think the experiences by definition are subjective. So whatever you experience, so that's one of what the philosophy would call it, the hard problem of like consciousness, is that whatever you do, you cannot escape the fact that actually I don't have access to your experiences, even in normal basis, in typical cases, and you don't have access to my experience, right? So in typical cases. But the problem then comes from the fact that you need to study a subjective phenomenon. In this case, depersonalization. But as you said, can be depression, can be many other things, right? Like anxiety, anorexia, or many other phenomena. So the problem is, how can you study a subjective phenomena from a scientific third-person objective point of view, right? So that's a major issue, but I think it's doable, and it's doable because we can join forces between different disciplines, right, and try to come up with something like a more refined and nuanced understanding of a phenomenon. So, for instance, what you can do is, first of all, start with the phenomena itself, right? With the people that are experiencing this. So engage with them, gather like the first-hand reports from them, lived experiences. This is something that clinicians already do a lot because they are in front line. They meet these people on a daily basis and they need to answer their questions. Then what you can do next is try to see whether you can develop first-person qualitative methods that people that experience this phenomena can use to actually say something, convey a message, right? And that message can be somehow measured, right, between participants. Because if you have the same tool that you apply to different people, then you can gather something that you can objectively measure. Yeah. Then you can use interesting task that you can ask people to do, behavioral task, and at the same time measure what is happening in the brain while they're doing their task, and to figure out exactly which type of like brain processing underlines which type of reported experience, subjective experience, like I feel this or I feel that, right? So that's something you can do. Ideally, it would be nice to actually have all these methods gathered under one umbrella to understand the phenomena. But as I said, this is something that still needs to be done, and there is a lot of work to do because the experimental data is relatively scarce compared with other disorders, which is quite strange given that it's the third most common psychological symptom of the anxiety and low mood in the general population, right?
Mhm.
So, and when you said you said that sometimes it's difficult for the scientists to examine a phenomena that they haven't experienced. Well, as a scientist, I engage with many of my colleagues and I try to explain to them my research. And sometimes people will come, I mean, my colleagues, the scientists, will come to me and say, wait a minute, but actually, I'm experiencing that, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know that, you know, so they know that from a first person perspective, except that they don't know that they know it,
Right.
right? They don't know that they
Right.
have it because there is no awareness. Imagine if you don't have a contrast, right? So you go through that experience all the time, but if you don't have a contrast to something which is like before or after, then it's difficult to yeah. And also if you don't have the, as I said, because it's such a subtle experience, you don't have the tools, you don't have the words to actually express properly. And people say, what do you mean? You know, as just to give you just one very simple example. So for instance, one of the markers of depersonalization in comparison with psychosis, for instance, is that reality testing is intact. So this means that people know that whatever they experience is a subjective phenomena, but not the reality itself, right? So if you pinch someone with depersonalization, give me a harmful signal, yeah. So they will correctly withdraw the arm in response to the painful stimuli. And they will say something, I know this pain is mine, but doesn't feel like being mine, right? So imagine how difficult it is to actually explain to people in daily life. Is like, so I see you that you withdraw the arm to the pain, so this means that you feel it, right? You know that that arm is yours, right? That hand is yours. You don't want your hand to be in pain, so you withdraw the arm. And and you tell me that actually you know that that pain is yours, but you also tell me that it doesn't feel that your pain is your pain, right? So, and that seems to tap on this very idea of like a altered subjective sense of self. It is the very subjectivity of the experience is somehow changed and altered.